Speaking of
Well.
Deshaun's, I think that's another great segue onto the much worse Deshaun.
All right, let's get into this. We've talked about Deshaun Watson on this channel honestly too many times. He doesn't deserve it. He's a horrible human being. He sucks. I hate him. He's ugly. And more importantly, he committed for sure sexual harassment, sexual assault, and those women did not get the justice that they deserved because he was only suspended 6 games by the retired judge Sue L. Robinson. I do want to just say that this is technically a suggestion, the suspension. It's not actually put in place yet. But the judge looked at all the facts. She looked at the facts that the NFLPA brought to light, the fact that many owners were not held to the same standard, which I think was a huge problem. The other thing is, like, the NFL in general. I mean, we always say, like, oh, it's a terrible place, but, like, it's super inconsistent with its punishments, i.e. Calvin Ridley getting a year immediately. So Sue L. Robinson decided that 6 games was going to be the correct amount for Deshaun Watson. We'll find out today whether or not the NFL appeals that decision.
I feel like they will. Like,
I don't know if they will.
I don't get how there's not more of a punishment for this, whether it's from the league or whether it's from the authorities. Because it's just crazy to me. Like,
it's
making a guy sit out 6 games. I'm guessing it's without pay.
So what it is this is going back a little bit, but when the Browns gave him this, was it like $240 million guaranteed contract or something like that?
Yeah.
Basically, the way that it's structured is in anticipation of a suspension. They made his first year basically pennies on the dollar, so he would only lose, I believe it's $345,000 for the 6 games like not played, instead of like millions of dollars, which is now backloaded onto the contract. Like, the Browns knew this was coming.
It's just shake my head worthy because he's like not learning his lesson from this. Like,
no,
I don't know if he's even addressed the media, like apologizing. Maybe he has, maybe he hasn't. But
it was like an apology.
Yeah.
It was really, really cringy every time he's talking to the media.
Probably something his agent made him do. Yeah. But him sitting out 6 games is nothing to him because he sat out a whole goddamn season last year.
While getting paid
$300,000 he'll be losing is like $30 to him.
Yeah, it's chump change.
It's just a shame, especially, just with the world we live in, everything that happened with Roe v. Wade. And you brought up an interesting point yesterday, which was we were talking about this. If this happened to like you or I, and we were crazies, like nobody would even look bat an eye at us. But since he's a celebrity, I guess, not a very good celebrity, but a top quarterback in the league, it's making headlines, and it's just a shame how it's being handled.
Yeah, like I said yesterday to you, money talks. Unfortunately, that is the way the world works, where if you make a shit ton of money, like a Dan Snyder, who also was accused of, I'm pretty sure, of sexual harassment, who's the owner of the Commander Washington football team. You pretty much it's mind blowing to me that like a sexual harassment case like to this scale. Sure, it's to the scale also because he's a celebrity, but like take that to the side. The actual act is, like he should probably be in jail. Like I feel, or at least some significant punishment from the law, not just the NFL. Like 6 games is nothing in the grand scheme of things. And like you said, $345,000, it's like $30. He's not losing shit. And the fact that he's not getting this like massive punishment. Oh, did you see the clause that's in what her recommendation is? was I think I told you this yesterday, but a clause in the actual ruling of what Sue L. Robinson, I guess suggested was that he's only permitted to get massages from team
The team,
approved
yeah.
masseuses, which is like it's so cringy. Like in the actual like thing that she wrote, it basically was saying the NFL's like punishments are inconsistent, which is why it's 6 games. But he did it. Like that was the crux. Is like if you read it, you're like, there's no way that she comes out and says 6 games.
This
You
is
say like
this is not right to say, but there's no stopping Deshaun Watson. He'll
oh my
find a way to slip that team doctor, whether it's a man or a woman, some money.
I would think, yeah, they should give him only male doctors. And honestly, even
He
that, or
clearly has an
still
addiction.
not fair.
It's clearly a problem. Like it's not something that he's magically just going to stop doing. That's what I think. Once you're addicted to something, you kind of continuously do it. But where do you stand on the league's punishments in general? Like you brought up Calvin Ridley.
They don't
How do
make
you
sense.
how do you think like Roger Goodell or the league just like approaches these situations, like just by looking at them? If you were to categorize them from worst to least worst, Deshaun Watson's obviously number one. DeAndre Hopkins taking minimal steroids.
Yeah.
Not
Well,
a big.
do you remember the Golden Tate? Sorry to interrupt you. The Golden Tate thing where he was trying to get his wife pregnant.
Yeah, and that's like not even like it wasn't even a negative thing. It's just something he wasn't allowed to take, but it was for like a good cause. But still, rules are rules, and he got punished for that. I remember that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But then obviously the Calvin Ridley thing is like
That's insane.
it is insane, but I do understand it. It's like you can't tamper, you can't bet on your own team because it's like fixing games in a way. It's cheating, and
I thought he didn't bet. I saw that all over Twitter, but I thought he didn't bet on any of like the Falcons games.
I thought that's what the whole thing was him betting on his own team.
I thought I don't know. We'll have to look back into this.
Regardless,
Either way, it's still not right.
yeah, a whole season seems a bit much, but
Especially when this ruling came to be, I was just like, I mean, it's also trending. It was like a hashtag free Calvin Ridley. To answer your question, I mean, they don't really make sense to me, to be honest. It's just unfortunate, I guess. Like, I think that part of the problem is they have these very inconsistent punishments. Like Kareem Hunt kicked a girl on camera and got 6 games. Like it's hard to justify how something like that, which was comparable only to Ray Rice, could only be 6 games. Sure, he got cut by the Chiefs, but like classic, the Browns are the ones who picked him up immediately.
yeah, if this ruling stands and Deshaun Watson only loses 6 games, I'm curious like why there wouldn't be the female fans of the Browns protesting during games.
So I think that this is what the NFL is going to have a problem with is like basically it is known if the NFL does not, so the NFL wanted a year or an indefinite suspension.
Yeah.
If they do not let this go, which I'm not saying they should because I think they should appeal. If they appeal it, Deshaun already said that he's going to sue them, and the NFLPA will back him and sue them. And
just a bad look on the league all around.
It's just a bad look. The thing that's funny is like in the appeal process. So before how situations like this worked, where that Roger Goodell was like judge, jury, and executioner. And then they changed it in 2020, I think it was. They changed it so that there was this independent arbitrator. So Sue Robinson comes into the fold, and that's supposed to be the suggestion. However, if it gets appealed, technically it goes back to the Roger Goodell who has final say. The issue with that is obviously again like they're gonna get sued. So we'll see. The thing that I think the NFL is most worried about, Roger Goodell is like contemplating, if this gets taken to court, they cannot do anything about him playing until this is resolved. So like he will probably play week 1 if this happens. So it's like, do you let that happen, or do you just take the 6 games and avoid a lawsuit? And I think that's what they're trying to contemplate right now. What's best for them.
Yeah.
Either way, it's going to be a horrible look. It already is. 6 games is pathetic. Like it's very light.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Yeah. I can't talk about him anymore. It's just
Let's move on.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's just a shame because he's so talented. He's so good. Like a very appealing fantasy quarterback, and he is a game changer, and it just goes to show his value. How like the Browns will go from being a below 500 team to an above 500 team just because of him. You could say that about so many teams, like Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady.
Yeah, I mean, to be like from a purely football standpoint, he is a game changer. Totally, he led the league in passing on the Texans when they lost DeAndre Hopkins. Like, he will be just fine from a football standpoint, and the Browns will be a very good team because they have a very, very, very good O-line, an amazing run game, solid pass game with Amari Cooper, and they have a very good defense also. Their defense is so good. Myles Garrett, like Clowney, Denzel Ward, there's a lot of good players. So they'll make a run. If it's only 6 games, they have plenty of time to make that up. And Jacoby Brissett's average, maybe probably a little below average, but he can play like in that system. He's like a Baker Mayfield. He just will give it to Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Let them do their thing. Like that's probably how it'll go. Anyway, let's move on because I really cannot keep talking about Deshaun Watson anymore. Debo, right? Debo finally signs his contract extension or 3-year, $71.55 million, $58.1 million guaranteed. I'm glad he got his money. He deserves it. He was terrific last year. What do you make of the fact that he has incentives to do, for rushing yards when apparently one of the holdups was the fact that he didn't want to get beat up from being a running back and receiver? What do you make of that?
It's very counterintuitive. It kind of feels like a slap in the face. Like he deserves this money. He is like the superstar of their team. It was George Kittle, but now it's him. This money was long overdue for him.
Totally.
But yeah, it's kind of just like he doesn't really have a choice. And you don't want to say that to him because he'll, it's going to be deja vu all over again of him wanting out of San Fran and wanting to play for another team who's not going to put him in situations he doesn't want to be in. And those incentives are just like, yeah, you like playing for things kind of like with, I guess the first thing that comes to mind is like Antonio Brown last year or 2 years ago when Tom Brady, he had to get like a certain number of catches, was it, or a certain number of touchdowns to get a certain amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So it's like similar. Like I'm sure Trey Lance or Jimmy G will probably be out of there at some point. So assuming Trey Lance will help him get there, but it's more of just like he's such a versatile player. Kind of reminds me in ways like a lot of Deshaun Jackson, where you can use him both in the pass and the run game. He's just so talented. The 49ers are a good team, but on their offense, they're like they're running out of like opportunities. When I say that, I mean they're running out of. They don't have a whole lot of chances in terms of players that they can win off of. George Kittle is kind of deteriorating, it feels like, but he's still so talented. Elijah Mitchell has had like injury problems, but he's a talented running back. Hopefully Trey Lance is the real deal. I think he will be. But other than them, it's kind of like the Deebo Samuel show. So he's going to be put in situations where if they're on the goal line and, they need an end around to him, he's going to want the football. So
yeah.
That's just how much of a threat he is. So I think he's just going to play his game and not really think much about it. If he's obviously starting to get hurt, he's going to kind of step off the gas pedal a little bit, but
Mm.
I think it's just part of his game. It's where he's at his best.
They can't afford to be wrong on Trey Lance. They invested so much capital into him.
Very very similar situation to us giving up on Carson Wentz and putting the baton in Jalen Hurts' hands. A young up and coming quarterback who's going to struggle in the beginning, but has a lot of potential.
Yes. Yeah, Trey Lance has like a sky high ceiling, but I think it'll be a rough go the first probably 6 games. Like I think it'll be a rough go because if you think about it, he's played 1 game and including college the last 2. Oh, I guess he he started 2 games last year. So he probably has played 3 games total in the last like 2 to 3 years, probably 2 years. So that's not many games for reps purposes. Like he just needed reps, and they didn't give him any last year. In fairness, Jimmy G led him to the playoffs again. So I'm sure that their offense will completely change, but Debo obviously is a major, major part of that. Maybe Ayuk will actually play decently this year, and I love Kittle. I love Kittle so much. Like I just think he's hilarious as a person. And he yells while he's blocking. Like that's so funny.
Yeah.
That's like who's the Quentin Nelson from the Colts. He also like yells when he blocks and then laughs when he pancakes people. So it's like I love that kind of personality. Anyway, all right. Do you want to cover this next one? This one is wacky. This broke yesterday.
Yeah, this was top headlines here, at least in the NFL world, but with the Miami Dolphins, and news broke yesterday that for tampering, they'll be losing a 2023 first round pick and a 2024 third round pick, which I think is like a little bit light, but
I think that's a pretty hefty. Well, I don't know. I guess
I think it could be more for tampering because basically the whole tampering was with Tom Brady in 2019. Was it 2000? No, yeah, 2019 when he was on the Patriots.
Yep, and then again in 2021.
Yeah, when he was still a part of the team, trying to convince him to come to Miami, which they almost got him there. They basically
they got him to retire.
Yeah, they caught the fish. They were reeling him in, and before they got him to Miami, he let go and hopped on the Buccaneers dock. And
I wonder if Brian Flores didn't file that lawsuit, if none of this would have come to light and he would have been on the Dolphins.
It's very true. I think it's a very, very real possibility.
Do you remember like the whole rumor thing of like he was going to be a part-time owner of the Dolphins and a player also? Do you remember that whole thing? And Sean Payton was going to come out of retirement.
Yeah, that's another thing, was getting Sean Payton to come to Miami as well.
Right.
Part of the tampering. So
crazy.
The Dolphins owner Stephen Ross, which is a disgrace to Stevens everywhere.
Yeah, I hate Stevens.
I hate that name.
They're so stupid. I hate them.
He'll be. He got fined $1.5 million, and he's suspended through August 17th, which I believe is the first 6-7 games of the season.
I think it's first 6. I think he and Deshaun Watson would technically come back on the same day, which is
and he's not allowed to attend like league meetings or anything. So he really, this one's on the owner.
It's pretty wild.
It's just such a strange situation to me. And the Dolphins I think it's just all those years of Brady and the Patriots beating up on the Dolphins and making them look terrible. They're like
totally
kind of with Kevin Durant. Like if you can't beat him, you got to get him. So you can't beat him, join him. So and the funny thing is, just even after, like obviously they weren't caught yet, but even after he joined the Bucs, they were still trying to get him to come to the Dolphins.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy. The whole situation is crazy, and I honestly just feel like it was going to happen a very long time ago. Michael Florio, who is very Pro Football Talk, and he's also very he just He's one of those guys who's like in the rumor mill. He mentioned this on like the Rich Eisen show. Shout out to him. I really like the Rich Eisen show. But he mentioned this on that show, and I was like, that's interesting. And then it kind of was just like, oh, like it wasn't really mentioned, and then this dropped out of nowhere yesterday. I'm gonna go off my conspiracy that I told you yesterday. My conspiracy is because of the timing of this, the NFL will not appeal Deshaun Watson's ruling, and they dropped this on purpose to not mask, but like point the audience in a different direction to alleviate some of the pain that is coming for the NFL once they don't appeal. That's my conspiracy. We'll know.
I disagree with it, but I agree with it to the extent that I think it was like ideal for them to drop this bomb.
Interesting timing. That's all I'll say.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's true, but interesting timing for like this is pretty huge news. Like just to randomly happen on the day before the appeal decision. I don't know. Kind of interesting. Anyway, so that's pretty wild.
Well, despite all this,
it'll screw them for next year.
Yeah, it will.
Because if Tua doesn't perform, that's just they have another pick already. So they had 23 firsts, and that would have helped them to move up. But now there will only be 31. There will only be 31 picks in the first round next year.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. I wonder how that works out with pay.
Yeah, that is interesting. But enough negative news for one day. Football is in the air.
Wow.
It's almost
Except not really.
Except not really.
Jake Luton is starting. They don't even have their backup for the Jaguars.
I believe it's September 8th. Is a Thursday. That's the opener between the Bills and the Rams.
Is it?
I believe it's September 8th. But
damn it, it's still a month away.
Yeah, we have about a month and 5 days or so.
Well,
tomorrow,
tomorrow
meaning Thursday, is the Hall of Fame game, correct? Which is the Oakland Raiders of Las Vegas taking on the.
I just spit all over my computer.
Taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars of Florida.
Thank you. The Oakland Raiders of Las Vegas.
All starters will be sitting, which is no fun. I don't think I've ever watched that game in the history of my life.
Not me either. It's such a bad game.
It's fun just to watch football, but college football is starting up soon too. So
when does college start?
I think it starts in a week or two. It's coming up. I think it's coming up around the corner.
Don't they have their scrimmages and stuff? You know what I mean? Yeah. I feel like Alabama does that every year, and they televise it.
August 27th. So.
Oh, okay. So that's coming up.
3 weeks.
Okay, so that's right around the NFL start too.
Yeah, it's like a week or two before, but.
Okay.
Yeah, what do you make of this Hall of Fame game? Like, obviously, it's the
worst game.
It's the worst game. They do it every year. It just kind of gets you fired up that football's a month away, but
yeah, it's just it's just a bad game. And then it's the fact that it's not even the backups, that the Jaguars aren't even going to get ETN some reps. Like, there's no point in watching it. So
I think he'll get some reps, and
no, they're sitting him
for the whole
game. They're sitting him and Trevor.
I'm saying I think he'll get some reps for. Why am I blanking on the name? Like the summer games that they play,
preseason
games. I was blanking on that.
Yeah, he definitely will, but not for the usually. Don't you? I mean, there's 3 weeks worth, or is there 4?
It's 4 games.
Didn't they scale it back?
Or they might have dropped it to 3 games. Yeah, it is 3 games. Yeah, they scaled it back a game.
So it's 3 because they're trying to prevent injuries before the season. Although that didn't work because Tim Patrick just tore his ACL. So that's
Yeah,
unfortunate.
I texted you that it was just impeccable timing. I was working on this piece, and in this podcast, A Good Football Show, they were interviewing the Broncos beat reporter. I believe it was for The Athletic, or it might have just been their beat reporter, but he was just talking about like Russell Wilson and how big of a change it was from him to go from Seattle to Denver and the expectations of him, and on a fantasy scale, what to make of the Broncos receivers. And he's obviously going to make Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton better. But for some reason, Tim Patrick was his favorite target to find in practice. And not even an hour later, the news breaks. So they obviously didn't know that at the time.
Yeah.
But it's just scary. It's just like, especially you have the whole off season that you kind of get in shape and get ready for training camp, and you're just practicing, and something fluke happens. It happens every year to somebody, and
every year. It's a shame.
Not that Tim Patrick was not a very big name in fantasy, but he starts playing well. People will pick him up.
I respect Tim Patrick like a lot though, because I like him a lot. He was the third receiver on that team. Jeudy goes down
here too.
He played super well. Cortland Sutton went down the year before that. He played really, really well. He earned himself a contract, like a pretty decent sized contract from the Broncos. So, and I know that they were using him in the slot, like as a big slot. So
you're a big slot.
You're a slot. So we'll have to see who takes over that slotty role. You know what I'm saying?
Oh boy, I'm ready.
The only last piece of news is Alvin Kamara's. This will be a good segue, but Alvin Kamara, his court date was suspended another 2 months. Basically, for those who didn't see it, he basically beat the shit out of someone. And so did this other, like a Chiefs cornerback, I think. I forget his name. And they beat the shit out of this guy who was jawing at them or whatever. Maybe he hit him. And so he got arrested. And he'll probably be suspended. This is just like one of those things that's like another very bad look from the NFL. Whether or not he gets suspended, I don't know. What do you make of the fact that it's like, so the court date's now 2 months out. The NFL has yet to make a ruling. What do you take for like fantasy purposes? Do we take the risk on a guy who, I mean, last year it wasn't like we talked about this yesterday, but it wasn't an amazing year for Alvin Kamara. It was a different year. He had a ton of rushing work, not as much passing, which was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Under Jameis Winston. What do we do with fantasy purposes?
Well,
it's all Alvin Kamara.
It's all circumstantial, because most likely the way this will play out is he'll play maybe the first couple games, then the league will reach some kind of 6-game suspension or whatever it might be. I'm not a morning person either, but
just want to make that known.
Yeah, it's going to reach some point where he will be suspended. So I think that's gonna happen. But maybe he gets away and like they delay it till the off season. Who knows? But I don't like picking risky players. It's like,
that's not true. You picked Michael Thomas last year.
After last year, I don't like picking risky players. It's just not worth it in my opinion. But it's really all circumstantial, because he's not going to be. He should, like, based off his talent, he's been a first-round pick. This year he will not be. So it's really. We'll look at the rankings in a second, but it's really circumstantial based off what pick you have and if you're willing to take a chance on him. Take a chance on me.